4, 3. Off to us. The what is that? The Wayne's World. You remember Wayne's World?
Wayne's World.
And they're always doing the 2-1, but like silent. So you don't have to live with pain or chronic neuro issues any longer. In this podcast, you will learn how to stabilize your brain, body, and biochemistry for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Teams, and this is the NeuroRESET podcast. Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the NeuroRESET podcast. We're here with a special guest, Irene. We go way back. She's a patient here, and we've luckily been able to help her out with a handful of things over the years. But in my opinion, the coolest one was that initial concussion situation that you went through, and then what brought you back recently was something a little more orthopedic, a little more straightforward. So,
yes.
If you could introduce yourself, what you do for a living, anybody that's out there that might need your help from a business perspective, we can certainly connect them with you that way as well. And so first I'd like to thank you for taking the time to share, the things that you've been through and maybe help other people recognize that there's things that we can do for them.
Thanks for having me on. And it's an honor to be here, honestly. I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. Dr. Teams saved my life, my quality of life for sure. And I am so grateful. My name's Irene Duford, and I was a mortgage broker for many years. And for the last 12 years, I've been a coach for loan officers. And 5 years ago, I opened my own training company for their support staff, loan team training. And so that's what I get to do every day. And you've really helped me to be able to open that business 5 years ago because my quality of life was so much better that I was able to do it.
Right on. I guess I didn't realize that you were going through the transition of starting the gig when you were dealing with, was that the concussion thing?
Yes.
How far in? Was that like first
the
year?
concussion happened in 2018, and I was supposed to start that same month.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to wait because
wow.
I wasn't feeling well enough. But thank goodness I found you, and you were able to help me. And then I was able to open it. In January of 2019 was my first class.
I guess I didn't realize the transition, like the height or the weight of that transition.
Yeah.
It made me think that you were just doing another little program for your current business, but it was a total shift.
Total new business.
Wow. Okay.
An additional
there
business.
You go.
The first one, the coaching, I didn't own that company. I opened it up with another person, Carl White, for the mortgage marketing animals. And I'd been doing that for 12 years. It was my idea. I came up with the idea and brought it to him, and he said yes.
Awesome.
But it was his company.
Yeah.
So in 2019, it's my company.
Awesome. Congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
Fantastic. I didn't even realize that.
Bring the mic a little closer to you.
A little closer. There we go. It's not every day we get to tell you to talk louder.
That's right. Most people don't have to tell me to talk louder.
Okay, so what happened with that concussion? That was a whirlwind.
Man, that was something. It's interesting because you mentioned to me that just recently you were on my podcast, and I'm so grateful. But you mentioned that when we're already stressed out, things get worse. And I didn't even realize that. I mean, it makes sense, right? But I didn't realize it. So in 2018, in July, I was on my way to a coaching event where we have our coaching people come and we get together a couple times a year. And we flew into Idaho and we were going to drive to Jackson Hole. And I was getting out of the car. My husband told me to leave the luggage to him. And of course, I didn't listen to him, right? So we went, the rental car was backed up against one of those curbs. And when I got the luggage out from the back, I walked around the car and tripped on that curb right between the two cars. My husband didn't even see me fall. He was like, "Where is she?" And he saw me on the ground. And it's true that when you fall, at least for me, I've heard people tell the story that when you fall, everything flashes before you, and it really did. I knew I was going to fall. I had no way to stop it, and it felt like I was going in slow motion, and I hit my head right here. And had black and blue. It didn't happen right away, but it ended up, I think it was on my right side. Yeah. And so I fell, I got up. He was wondering where I was, and he said, "What happened?" And I told him what happened. He said, "We've got to go to the emergency room." I said, "No, I'm fine. We don't need to do that. I'll take some Advil, and let's just go get an ice pack, and I'll be fine." Mm-hmm. And I didn't let him take me to the emergency room or anything, so I didn't get diagnosed immediately.
Yeah, and that's the stubbornness. You'll see you'll see it tracking through the program here through the discussion.
Yes, where you think you're always fine, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. And So that's what happened. And I fell. And so we drove. We tried to decide whether to go, or part of me wanted to go back home. And I thought, no, it's okay. I was more embarrassed than anything, and especially because of my face. I knew it was going to get black and blue. So we drove to Jackson Hole and ended up staying for the event. And then we had another event after that. And I still did my exercise. I still did everything, and just lived on Advil the whole time I was there.
Sheesh.
And I didn't know if I had a concussion. I felt like I was okay.
Mm-hmm. So what happened shortly after that?
So we went and came back, and about a week and a half to 2 weeks later, I ended up getting massive headaches. Just it came out of the blue. My husband was on his way to a golf trip with the sons, and I ended up getting massive headaches while he was gone. And my older son took me to the emergency room, and they couldn't figure out what it was. Just kept, giving me medication and sending me home. And I finally went in a second time when Kevin got home, and it was they did a spinal tap, and it ended up being viral meningitis, and that's what was causing it. And they said it just has to run its course. So that's what ended up happening. And I assumed it was from having my resistance so low from having fallen and stuff, but I didn't know.
Yeah. So you're saying like the stress response, like you're working through this other company, you're getting ready to launch your own, you're traveling, you're trying to do all the things.
Yes.
And on top of that, you hit your head.
Yes.
And so it very possible that the viral load was already there, and it might have turned into a bigger problem. Usually I say when the cat's away, the mice will play. The cat in this case is the immune system. And so when you smack your head, it alters your immune system.
Yes.
For short term, say a week or two. And then the next thing you know, like a week or two later, you develop this massive inflammatory response from that meningitis, and it just took you down, right?
Oh, it took me down. I have never experienced such awful pain like that. It was the worst. It was like someone was hitting me in the back of my head, like where my neck was in the back of my head, with a hammer or something. It was awful.
Jeez. So then what was the process going from then till when we started hanging out?
So I don't remember how long it was, but I went to the doctor, and they gave me medication and stuff and said it just has to run its course. So I suffered they said it was going to be like 7 to 10 days. It was a little over 10 days, and it felt awful. And so when I still worked, I took a few days off. Somebody took my coaching calls because I was coaching a lot of people back then. I didn't tell anybody what happened because I was embarrassed that I didn't want them to think that I would not have the ability to coach them. Looking back, that was the biggest mistake I made. I should have.
Well, it's that burning the candle at both ends thing, right?
Yes.
And that's okay. It happens. A lot of us do it. But it's not always conducive to healing, right? And
Right.
So, on one hand, but right before it, you were just cruising and developing this new program and your new business. And then all of a sudden you had to introduce this time to heal, and you didn't give yourself time to heal.
I didn't. Definitely didn't. I didn't know how to give myself time to heal back then.
And you see that a lot with the type A personalities,
Yes.
right? You just want to keep going. Everything's fine, right, Ree? Everything's fine. And so, you just keep going. The next thing you know, you're like, I'm burnt out.
Yes.
And so, luckily the injury happened. I say luckily, and you developed that meningitis, which made you stop for a little bit. And
It did.
And really seek the help.
Yes.
So I want to say it was something like 3 to 6 months afterwards. Or
I'm
was
trying
it?
to remember how long it was. It was a few months.
Yeah. Because I know it
Yes.
was long enough for you to talk to one of your mentors, I believe.
Yes.
And then he had known about a neuro guy out in the Bay Area, not Bay Area, the SoCal.
Yes.
And then they referred you to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I called him because I knew he coached chiropractors, and he teaches them how to do presentations and things. His name's Roberto Monaco, and from Influenceology, and he's amazing. He's a good friend of mine, and he right away went to his network, and that's how they found your friend. And I found you, and it just happened to be that you were in Chandler, and I was in Chandler, and oh my goodness.
Since then, we've both moved
Yes.
away from each other.
Yes, we have.
But it works out. It works out. I hope it's worth it.
Oh, definitely.
So then, did you go anywhere else for concussion care?
No.
Or was it your first time out? I think that's the way to go for those listening. Call us
It
first,
is.
but like certainly get things checked out. You already went to the ER. They'd run their thing. So like you were okay. It was just post-concussion and just viral meningitis, right? It'll run its course.
Yes.
So then we had to rehab the whole system from the concussion and from any dysfunction that the viral meningitis caused, right?
Yes. That was
So-
what caused a lot of the trouble, I think, was
Yeah.
the viral meningitis.
Yep.
But you were right that luckily it happened, even though I wouldn't want to go through that again.
Right.
The good thing about it is that you reset me neuro. I didn't say that right.
Neuro-wise,
You did
yeah,
a
yeah.
neuro reset for me.
Yeah.
But you also helped me with nutrition, and you helped me get rid of eating things that were hurting me, because I had been suffering for years from headaches, and not just headaches, but just a lot of inflammation that I didn't know what it was or what was causing it. And I found out after you got me all fixed up from the viral meningitis and all of that. Then we started working, because you took it slow, because
Yep.
I asked you to. I
Yep.
don't like to do things fast when it comes to
Had
that.
build some trust with you for
Yes,
sure.
yes. And that's the thing is, what I love about working with you is that you do let the patient decide how fast and how slow they're going to go. And for me, I needed to do it slow. And I've been thinking about that. I've been wondering why I had to go so slow, because I'm not usually a slow person. I like to go fast.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was because I had lived with headaches and pain for so many years before this happened that I didn't want any more pain.
Yeah.
And I was doing, and then the pain of falling, and then the pain of the viral meningitis, I just didn't want to experience pain anymore.
Yeah.
And so you're right, I had to develop the trust.
Yeah.
And you going slow with me was the best thing you could have done. You were hearing me.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Dr. Teams, is he listens to you. And I just really appreciate that, because I don't think I would have stayed doing it if you hadn't listened to me. Because I've had other doctors, other types of MDs and stuff. They don't listen the same way.
I agree. I think a lot of doctors, there's a lot of great docs that do listen.
There
and
are.
There's some that don't have the time because of whatever system they're in, or they just don't care. And usually those guys aren't going to be as busy, right? However, the thing, because I've been through multiple, chiropractic by itself, people, chiropractors can sometimes have a bad rap. The whole adjusting thing, and you hurt
Yes.
people or cause additional problems or whatever. There's a time and a place for an adjustment, right? And so I remember you were like, I don't want you to adjust me.
Yes.
It's like the thing with the neck, like a lot, and dude, that's fine. I got no problems doing that. Chiropractic for us is a tool. It's not the end all be all. So like there's a lot of patients that we don't adjust, and we just work through with neuro and some other stuff and physical exercise and just getting them back up to speed, and they do pretty well. But yeah, that was certainly a key to making sure you didn't go anywhere. Right, because in your case, we needed time to make those changes.
Yes.
Right, we needed like more than just a few months to get the concussion rehabbed, to get the nutrition rehabbed, get all the chemical stuff rehabbed in your body, and then part of that neurological piece, you can call it psychological, is maybe changing some habits so that we're not burning the candle at both ends
Yes.
constantly. And so. So that was where we met ultimately, was the concussion rehab. We're doing all the head movements, the eye movements, the body movements, the breathing exercises. We're making things tough on you. And then we ended up activating or going more into the physical training of side of things, right?
Yes.
And I know we connected you with a colleague of ours, Dylan,
Yes.
for more of the nutritional things. And so he's the trained nutritionist. And I thought he did great work with you.
He did.
Everything in life is just, the key is consistency. It's hard to do everything consistently all the time. I myself, I will tell you, and my wife will spill the beans, that I'm not always consistent with like a working out or eating right. It's like sometimes you're say, screw it, and I just want to eat some good food and just deal with the consequences. Like for me, gluten and dairy, gluten I can handle better than dairy. Dairy doesn't like me very well at all. So, like last couple weeks ago, we went to, maybe last weekend, went to like an Italian food dinner, because we had like some kind of gift card, and we went and just, fettuccine Alfredo, you betcha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nailed it, paid for it, but it was great.
You do pay for it too. I notice a big difference
yeah,
when I eat that.
for sure. Lately, probably the last month or two, 6 weeks or so, I've been eating mostly carnivore. And so I've really had hardly any carbs outside of these little, those Unreal chocolate bars that I get from Costco.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I've basically been just eating meat, and it's been fantastic. I felt amazing.
Wow.
This week, we had an off weekend, meaning there was nothing to do. So we just sat around and vegged and ate food we shouldn't have eaten. Both of us are like, what the heck is going on? We're like bloated. And
You feel different.
And so, so diet is big, very
That's
big.
what I've loved about working with you is it wasn't just fixing me from the viral meningitis. It wasn't just getting my neuro reset and everything. It was the nutritional things that you suggested. And I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready. It had been a long time coming.
Yep.
And I was ready.
The stars aligned for you, and we were one of them.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
So then we went through, and you'd mentioned you had to remind me of the frozen shoulder thing that you developed. That was
Yes.
bizarre. I remember working on that. Now that you're reminding me,
Yes.
and so that one took a little bit. Frozen shoulder. I know when you talk to PTs, they're talking anywhere from like 9 to 15 months, 18 months kind of thing. I think yours was shorter than that.
It was.
And then in addition to like the concussion stuff, there was a lot of pain in that right-sided head neck stuff.
Yes.
But we could certainly do too much when it got to the neck, right? So it's like less is more. And I remember when you came to the new office, because I hadn't seen you in a while, I was like, the number one thing I remember about you is less is more. And so like, we don't need to go in and do those big adjustments, a little tap here, a little tap there. And it just, like your system is sensitive in that way. So like less is more, right? And then now we're dealing with like, I would say normal people problems, like with the neck thing and the shoulder and the nerve going down the arm.
Yes.
Had a disc herniation into the right side. And so we had to do a round of decompression. And, it was to the point where I think you did cancel that trip because it was that first couple weeks.
I did. I
She
was
couldn't even hold her arm up.
I could not. It was. I have never until after the viral meningitis. That was terrible pain. This was worse.
Wow.
And it was all the way from my shoulder all the way down. I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't lay on my side. I couldn't put my arm a certain way. It was heat and moist heat and dry heat and Bengay really was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to speak at I had to stop everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It really took me down.
Yeah. And I know it's tough because she had moved a little further south and I moved my office north. So it's probably about an hour for you to get up here, I imagine. And so, luckily we had the experience that we had, and we've been able to help you with so many things through the years that it was like, hey, this is what I'm finding. This is what I would do. And this is how I would do it. And you're like, let's go.
Yes.
She's like, I'm not living like this damn arm anymore. Right.
That's right.
And so we just got to work. I think I saw you like daily for the first couple weeks.
Yes.
And then after that, it started to peel off both with pain. We worked through some triggers, like some intensity stuff. But like we said, less is more. So like the things that we're supposed to do with you that would like work for everyone else, it's not going to work the same for you, right? So we started that protocol going fast, which is opposite of what you typically tolerate. And then we peeled back, and that's when you started doing better and better. So,
yes.
So that was nice to figure out your exact recipe, and it's nice to be sitting here chilling and not really have an arm issue.
And to feel so good.
Yeah.
People have been asking me, how are you feeling? Because I was transparent this time with people, and I let them know. Luckily, I had lowered the count of the amount of people I was coaching.
Yeah.
So it was easy to move them because I was only coaching a few people compared to before. And I let them know what was going on. And I even put it on social media. And that was like a big deal for me to admit that I had something going on like that. But I did it on purpose to make people aware that you shouldn't, you should take care of things when they're happening to you.
Definitely. How many people reached out and like, oh my gosh, I have something similar? I bet you a ton of people.
A lot of people
It's
have.
crazy how many people have things going on
Yes.
that other people are dealing with, and it's just tough. But that's, I think, why we do what we do. Just anybody, if we can make it work and logistically it works for you, like we're probably going to be able to help you out.
Yes. And what I loved is that I came in a few times. You weren't exactly sure what it was, but you had your theories, right? And then you said, let's just do an MRI.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect you to say that.
Right.
I was really glad you did, because to me that really pinpointed.
Oh, totally.
What it was.
That made the biggest difference on, okay, now this is exactly what we're dealing with. Here's the treatment protocol.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, low backs typically take about 3 months. Necks have been seeming to take about 4 months for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we use it all day long. Gravity's working against us, and so it's going to compress those discs and things. And but yeah, I think we're probably at that 3-4 month mark, and now you're doing pretty darn good.
Yes. And if I overdo it on the computer, if I'm on the laptop, or if I'm doing too much with, especially because of the mouse, if I'm using it, I notice that it gets sore, and I have to sore compared to what sore used to be is nothing.
Right.
But I can tell, and it's my trigger to let me know that it's time to step back.
Yep.
And I made a promise to you, and I made a promise to myself and to my husband.
And I was going to say Kevin.
Yes, to my husband, Kevin, that I would never push myself like that again.
Yeah.
And I haven't.
Yeah.
I've gotten close where I start to do it, and then
Totally.
because it's a habit, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a habit.
Well, you're wired that way, right? And that's
Yes.
there's a lot of people that are wired to just go, and usually it doesn't end well. And so if you can educate along the way, right? And that was a big part of like, hey, you're burning the candle at both ends. Like you're trying to do this and trying to heal. Like it's very difficult to do both.
Yes.
So if you'd rather work, great, you're going to deal with the pain. If you'd rather get better, then you're not going to be able to work as much right now. And then we can get you back into the swing of things, but we got to curb it just a little bit so you don't just overdo it.
Yes.
Like we talked, I think it was either with you or somebody I had a talk with at the naturopath school on Friday, and they said somebody that I've been working with did amazing in like a short 6-week time frame. They go from coaching or managing mortgage brokers. Like he hired and trained 50 of them and ran a 50-person office. Burnt the candle at both ends, crashed, and developed all sorts of neurosymptoms. And so we rehabbed him, and he gets to the point where he's like, hey, I can go back to work. Great. Guess what? Gets hired on to a big company to hire 50 people and train them. I was like, you kidding me? So like, we'll see him again. Hopefully it's not going to be as bad because he's going to call us before that happens. But
I hope he comes in sooner.
Exactly.
The sooner
exactly.
the better is
and
what
so,
I would say.
I'd love to say, hey, sure, we definitely fixed the system to the point where he can go and burn the candle at both ends. But that's like, it's only a matter of time before, the body gives out a little bit.
Yes.
So you just got to keep taking care of it. And that's what you've learned, right? And so hopefully this other individual would need to touch base with them because I know we work at the same time he works. So it's hard to get time off.
Yes.
But I'm thinking if we can get him in like once every 2 weeks, once a month even, just to make sure he's staying on top of his game.
That's what I would do for sure, is to come in once. Because I have
Yep.
come in
Yep.
even when I really didn't have pain,
Yep.
but I was trying to avoid pain.
Exactly.
And
And
I
so,
did.
yeah, and a lot of people like with the decompression stuff, which I guess in a way we've kind of moved away from because there's just been such a big demand for neurocare lately. When we get to the spine, most people that go through the program and they're like, I feel great. It's like, cool. I'm glad you feel great, but like, don't let it go back to the way it was,
Right.
right? Because we've always got compressive stuff happening with gravity and exercise and bumps and whatever, just life is always trying to compress our spine. Like we all get shorter by the time we age, right?
Yeah.
And that's mostly because of the bone and the disc. So it makes sense to do what you did that got you out of it and just maintain that. You just have to find a recipe that works for you, right? You might be once a month. Some other people might be once every 2 months. But it's hard. I don't want people to just stop cold turkey because you just can't get the same treatment at home. Like
Right.
you could find other devices that can be similar. It's just not going to be the same as a big expensive piece of equipment that's designed to do that, right?
Yes.
So if you're out there and you're like on the fence with your doc about like maybe doing a maintenance program, I would highly recommend just doing it and just finding a way, basically your recipe of time, like how long you can go without needing an appointment, and just keep rolling at that time frame. The more you go, the more you're going to be able to extend it.
Exactly.
Right. And so like prior to this, I didn't see you for a year or two,
Yeah, it
couple
was like a
years.
year.
Yeah, couple years.
Couple years.
Which is always tough because I love seeing everybody, but usually when you have to come see me, it's not always a great
Right.
thing. So it's like a double-edged sword. But I would much rather see you once a month and have a smile on your face for the next 5 years,
Yes.
every 2 months, something like that, instead of like, the sky is falling because I've just been gone for a while. And it's like we can
Yes.
just nip I think it's nip it in the bud.
Yes, that's
And
it.
so, we're able to do that on a maintenance program, and that's why they work so well.
Yes.
Had another guy, low back. We actually just did a podcast with him a couple weeks ago, and he did great on his low back decompression program, and then he just got busy with work, not necessarily burning the candle at both ends, but just busy, so he couldn't make it in. Sure enough, has a big flare, and we're like, hey, luckily it wasn't the disc, it was more of a muscle thing. Because as you go through the program, you've got to like re-strengthen and stabilize all the physical structures as well, which is what we can talk about after this, and just get you doing some of those things at home. Basically to oppose being on the computer and working, right? Just keep things strong. So we had to do the same thing with him. His recipe is 1 appointment with us, 1 with a massage therapist, and he keeps up with his exercises 3 to 5 days a week or whatever. He's golden. And so everybody's just a little bit different. Just depends on what you need.
Yeah. There's a couple tips that I would recommend. One is I do teach the people that I coach to rest and recover.
Yeah.
And I'm good at rest and recovering. Like I'll be on my desk and it's a stand-up, sit-down desk. So I'll do 1 call standing up and 1 call sitting down. I've always been good at that type of thing, but the long hours is what was getting to me before.
For sure.
Starting really early in the morning because that's my best time, and then going till way late in the day. Even if you rest and recover, that's still a long day.
For sure.
And so I've learned not to do that. And I was trying to think of the other tips. Just making sure that people come in, like you said. It's totally worth the time that you take to do it, because my sister used to tell me for years and years, you can't get your health, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And I would hear her, she's my older sister, I would hear her say that to me and not really think about it that much like I should.
Well, certainly when you're cruising, we're never going to listen when somebody's cruising, right?
Yes.
My dad, as an example, he worked his tail off when I was young, just working, right? And once he retired, he's like, I don't want the same thing happening to you that happened to me. So like, stop working so hard. I'm like, but you don't understand. You got to build the business and da-da-da-da-da. And you get in that habit and you just go and roll. And the next thing you know, you're like having like hell. I think I took a mental health day a couple months ago, Ree. I was just, the stars were aligning and not the right way. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I got to go home.
Yes.
And I just hung out at the house. Like did some exercise, just cooked some food, just took it easy.
It's really good for us to do that.
Yep. And, it happens to everybody. We just, that's why one of the main reasons why we work 4 days a week is because the types of cases that we see really can get us. It's like if we just everybody needs a day to decompress, because a lot of us take it on emotionally from the patient. Like, it kills us to see somebody dealing with the stuff that they're dealing with.
I can imagine.
And so
it's got to be hard for you guys to watch
it's
people in pain.
tough. Like it's tough doing it as long as we've done it. The longer you do it, the less, the more you can create a barrier so it doesn't affect you. But there's going to be cases that you're always going to take home. You're going to rack your brain on why isn't this case moving faster? Why aren't they getting better? What am I missing? Is this my fault? Sometimes there's things outside of our control that they need to maybe see another practitioner, and they're just not doing that. And that's okay. They're making a choice, and that's fine. But like we can't take it all on,
Right.
We certainly try to, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah. And it's just coming in for maintenance is a big deal.
I would fully agree with that.
And being aware, when you have a trigger, be aware when you have a trigger. If your trigger is you notice that your neck is hurting a little or your arm is hurting because you're too much on the computer, it happens so much now because it's not just it's the phone too.
Oh yeah.
I noticed when I'm on my phone, my right arm starts to hurt me a little bit here, and right away that's my trigger, and I put my phone down and I'm not touching it the rest of the night.
Yep.
And I'm learning those things now. I'm learning when to see the triggers before they become painful.
Well, it's kind of an iteration of that, like stop to smell the roses kind of thing.
Yes.
Where before you were working so often and consistently that you were just passing everything, right? And you're reactionary to everything. Now you're being proactive.
Yes.
And so when something does kick in, it doesn't come in with the full force, right? It's just, it starts to rear its head a little bit, and then it reminds you, oh, hey, yeah, I need to back off just a hair.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people can get away with just burning the candle at both ends, and they might be wired more like that, and they have more energy in the stores and the things like that. And some people can just get away with it, but generally most people can't.
I did most of my life.
Yeah. And the thing is, all it took was a head injury for it to break,
Yes.
and that's the thing is, if you ever get in a car accident, fall and hit your head, anything like that, whatever's going on coming up to that is always going to get worse. So like the type A, a lot of times it turns into anxiety, insomnia type stuff. That's something else.
Which I've dealt with, insomnia.
And so, if you're just going all the time, it's just going to burn up sooner.
Right. But I just want to thank you for literally saving my quality of life. I say save my life. You did save my life. Because I don't know what my quality of life would be like right now without it. I'd still be having the headaches, not figuring out why.
Could you imagine if you called another guy?
Can you imagine? It wouldn't have happened.
Right? No.
But I knew the moment I met you that the connection was there.
Awesome.
I knew it because you were a good listener, and that's everything to me in a medical practitioner or anybody that helps me with anything like that. That's everything, is how you listen.
Yeah.
And you're very caring. And you explain everything really, really well. And you know me, I was there with my notepad and everything while you were telling me
Well, and
everything.
you educate for a living too, right?
Yes.
So it goes hand in hand. So it's always a little bit more fun when the person loves to learn like that. It's just, we get to do our thing even more.
But I remember squaring you up and just putting my arms on your shoulders and with tears in my eyes telling you thank you. Because back then, it was even more strong because I remembered the pain. I've forgotten a lot of the pain now. You do forget, but I'll never forget how I felt when it was done. And I realized that if I hadn't come to see you, then everything would have been different in my life. And so that's the way you help people. I just want you to know that, because you see it. People tell you that every day, probably. They thank you every day for making them feel better. But it's more impactful than you can even imagine. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for just being a great patient. We still got to work on that husband of yours, but
yes, we got to get him to come in here.
But no, thank you for trusting us with your life and your career and all that stuff. And it's just an honor to get to work with people like you. So thanks.
Thanks for having me on.
Any last words for our listeners?
Just to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you have rest and recovery during the day, and make sure you come in to see Dr. Teams, because he will change your life. That's my main message. And not to let things go until they're painful.
Yeah, for sure.
Take care of them before, when those triggers come in.
Let's do a mic drop on the Come See Us. Boom. All right, gang. Well, thank you so much, Irene. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure having you in here. We always have good conversations. And that's it for this episode of the NeuroRESET podcast. Make sure you check us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is starting to blow up. So just check it out over there. We've got a lot of video answers to questions and things like that. Drop us a line, desertbrainandspine.com. And we'd love to help you either fix something or optimize, and we'll see if we can. All right? You guys have a great one. Take care, and we'll see you next time.